What's up, Travis? Travis Ireland from Australia.
From
Good to have
Australia,
you.
Mike. From
Thank you for joining.
California.
Yeah. Yeah, I just listened to you on another podcast and your story really hit me hard because I have had a gambling addiction all my life. And it's rare people get out of these addictions. I've had a lot of addictions and your story really inspired me to reach out and just kind of talk to you about it and kind of get your perspective of how you got out of that and what it was like and what changed and what life's like now, you know. And we were trying
Yeah.
to spread some hope for people that are still struggling.
Well, mate, to answer the last bit, life is 50,000 times better. I don't have anywhere near as much financially, but I am the happiest I've been in a long time, mate. And that demon's off. That demon's gone. And I'm 11 and a half years now, so I'm a long time gamble free.
Nice.
But I'm one of the lucky ones, mate. I made it through. You know, I survived.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't,
No,
gambling's a big one for suicide that people don't realize because unlike other diseases and other addictions, you may go out and cause physical harm, you may lose a lot of money, but man, gambling, I mean, you can put yourself in such a hole that it's almost impossible to get out of before you stop. And those consequences last, in my opinion, much further once you get sober than in other addictions usually. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but yeah, that debt and that just loss of all that money that is so hard to get back can be very devastating. And some people feel such guilt over that they end up taking a different way out, a more permanent solution to a temporary problem, you know. And yeah, it's unfortunate. So that's kind of why we're here to kind of gambling is one of those ones that there's a lot of talk about other addictions, alcoholism, drug addiction, but there's not a lot on gambling. And gambling, I've seen in the U.S. and from what I've read, Australia is the number one country in the world for gambling addiction.
yeah,
And I see it more and more in the U.S. them getting around laws and just advertising to younger people, and like it just seems so detrimental to me that people don't realize what they're getting themselves into sometimes. Um, but
yeah.
here, go ahead.
Over here, the gambling scene, the gambling environment is in your face 24/7. You can't go a day without seeing ads for sports bet agencies, companies. It's really disturbing, particularly for me, knowing what it did to me. It's in your face. It's almost a bit of a culture over here to have a bet.
Yeah,
My son just recently turned 18, and the first thing he said was, "I'm going to go and put some money in the pokies." I
yeah,
said, "Mate, that's
I did.
why?" And we had a good chat. And he didn't do it, which was great. But it's just that we have pubs and there's pokies in the pubs. There's sports bets. There's TABs. There's horse racing. Everywhere you go, it's around you. And I'm glad I'm out of it. It's
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the thing about gambling is it's so easy to hide. Like
yeah,
I haven't had another addiction, but when you're drug and alcohol, the people can tell because you're either pissed or you've got tracks on your arms. But gambling, I just used to lie and say I'm in a bad mood, and
yeah.
then no one knew. It's so easy to hide, and being a gambling addict, I don't know how I did it. You find ways to cheat and lie and hide and things that I don't still to this day don't know how I did it. It's
I know it's
it's a horrible
crazy.
disease.
Yeah, you're constantly living a lie, constantly coming up with stories and excuses, and it just turns you into a liar. It's really hard on your soul, I would say.
Yeah.
And
I
for those that don't know, pokies in Australia is slot machines over here. I didn't know what
oh
here for the longest time. I was like, what are pokies?
Pokies, yeah,
Yeah,
poker machines.
yeah, yeah, poker machines. So let's kind of go back to, I know when did your gambling addiction, for you is the ponies, yeah? It was the horse racing.
The horses got me.
The horses got you. Betting on the ponies. For me, it
Uh,
was like it was blackjack, then it was poker, and then it was pokies. It was slot machines,
okay.
casinos. And for so when did you kind of when did it start to get bad? When did it become not so, just a fun thing to do? It became a habit that it wasn't just a habit, it was an addiction that was causing problems, affecting your
Yep.
family, affecting your relationships.
Yeah, so it started on I distinctly remember my 30th birthday. So I was always a casual punter. So I'd go to the pub and we all chuck in 50 or $20, and that was the fun part of it. And then on my 30th birthday, I put $1,000 on a horse. And being my birthday, everyone was there and everyone saw it. And this horse came fourth, and I lost $1,000. And I'm going to fast forward to when I was in rehab, and I got taken on what they call journey therapy, and I got put through a meditative state, and they try and find out where your gambling addiction started. And that was, for me, that was it. And in that meditative state that I was in, I had just had this image of all my friends laughing at me and pointing at me that I'd lost $1,000. And I remember going home thinking, I've got to win that back. Plus, I've got to show these people that I'm not a loser. Um, and it started from there. So that was 30, so that was 2002. So, and then I went hard at it for 11 years, and it just steadily got worse. So for me, it was horses. Then us over here, I don't know what the culture is over there, but it was a sports bet account or a Bet360. It was an online betting account.
Yeah.
So I then became addicted to my phone and betting on my phone.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was betting on South Korean volleyball at 1 o'clock in the morning, and
Just anything.
there was nothing that would stop me from having a bet. I couldn't go a day or even half a day without having a pending bet to keep me going.
Now, were you doing like studying and like stats and thinking you can beat it, thinking you're smarter than the average person, thinking you can
Yep. I
work
had an
it
Excel
out?
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had an Excel spreadsheet, and that explains everything. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I would then chuck that spreadsheet away and go, like I said, go and bet on Japanese volleyball. And I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was doing, but it was $1.50. And if I put $10,000 on it, then I was going to be 5,000 better off the next day. And yeah, it consumed me. It was horrendous how it consumed me
And
with
how
not
old were
only,
you when that took off?
so 30 years old I was when it first took off, and then it went through. I had kids. I got married. Hid this gambling from everyone. Hid it from my parents. Hid it from my, my friends, my family, everyone, until I couldn't hide it anymore.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so my channel, one thing that I want to do because I see that a lot of channels are very serious. And for me, I kind of laugh about my addictions because it's so crazy. My story's so, I lived in my car for 3.5 years in a 24-hour gym parking lot. And like,
wow.
yeah, I went to foreign countries. I went to China. I went to Thailand. I bought a degree online. I didn't have a degree, so I just bought one, a fake one, and went to Thailand to try to teach English and realized I don't speak Thai. They don't speak English. What am I doing? Like just getting into the most insane situations where I'm like withdrawing in a foreign country, and
Wow.
now at the time, obviously I thought I had to make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But now I look back at that and I just laugh because it's like, God, that was insane. What a crazy life. And I'm almost grateful it's all happened because I'm able to have experienced such lows that now the just mundane to me is like waking up not hungover, not owing anybody money, not trying to scramble how I'm going to get my negative bank account back up so I don't get the insufficient funds fees. I just wake up and I'm just like, oh my God, no problems. And much like you, I'm poorer than I've ever been, but I'm also probably happier than I've ever been
Yep.
since I was a child. And that's a common thing that I see with people that get out of these addictions is nobody would ever choose this life. So we get a very special experience in our lives to go through that. And if we make it through, it becomes almost a superpower where you're able to just have this positive outlook on life that is so it's so much easier to turn myself into a good mood because I just remember the bad times and I go,
Yeah.
even when bad things happen, it's like, nah, it's not that bad. It's kind of fun now. It's a challenge.
And I love that when you said you're waking up. That's the thing for me. I remember you used to have to wake up And the first thing I'd think of is either how do I get this money back or how do I lie to someone today?
Mm.
Now I wake up, I go for a run every day. That's my biggest problem is what time is the alarm going to set and where I'm going to run. I'm clear headed, and mate, we're the lucky ones. And I laugh about it now. I still have a lot of my mates that knew me back when I was punting, and I laugh about that person that I was. I lied to them. I would sneak off and have sneaky bets, and we laugh about that. And I think you have to laugh about it because we are the lucky ones, mate, that have made it through. I mean, I've got a story. Do you have Gamblers Anonymous over there?
We do, but it's very. I go to Alcoholics Anonymous because Gamblers Anonymous is very hard to find. It's not very.
Okay, so where I live, there'd be 7 or 8 different chapters
Oh,
around my area, so I can choose. And I went there early on, and I presume it's the same. You get a sponsor, and my sponsor was a younger guy. At the time, I was 40. He was maybe 30, ex-professional athlete, and I went in a bit naive and had a story that I got up for the first time, said my name, and I said, I'm only going to spend $20 a week from now on. And the room went completely quiet. The room
good luck
just
with
went
that.
just dead. And I thought, what have I said? What have I done? And I carried on with my story. And he walked up to me and he said, get that $20 out of your wallet and don't ever, ever spend that. You are done. And he had a real good chat to me about don't ever spend that $20 because I thought I could still gamble casually
Yeah,
in my head. And he quickly, as well as Gamblers Anonymous and then Rehab, quickly said that that's not going to happen. And I'm glad they did. And I went to Gamblers Anonymous for 2 years, religiously for 2 years. And uh, a sad story, that same guy, I went back just for a bit of a reunion and he wasn't there. And he picked up $10 off the floor of a pub and he put it through the Keno machine and won. He hadn't gambled for 11 years, which is where I'm at now. And he won. And then he got addicted again. And the reason he wasn't there is because he took his own life. And this is the guy that got me the first day so passionately about you can't do this. And then he went and did it himself and unfortunately took his life. Um, so that's my reminder every day that the job's not done.
yeah,
I've still got every day I've still got to remind myself that I'm not going to go back and be that person.
yeah. And that's one thing with addiction is we lose people. That almost the same thing happened to me. The guy that I called when I was addicted on drugs. I knew a friend I get grown up with forever from high school, but he wasn't a close friend. He was always because I always knew he was always in and out of stuff, and he was kind of. But he had gotten last I'd heard he got sober and had a wife, and she got sober, and they had a kid, and so um, went to rehab, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but I had contacted him and he's the one that walked me through get to AA, get some help. This is what's going to happen. This is how you're going to feel. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be mentally just gone. And um, and I just thanked him. And we didn't really keep up too much, but then I heard he had went to rehab and to get clean because he was having a kid. And I guess him and his wife got a conjugal visit type thing, or they got a day together, and apparently he used on that and overdosed and died. And
Oh,
they had just had a kid, and then she went back out, and now his mom, who I've known since I was little, is raising their kid.
yeah, well,
And same thing as I think about that, like the guy that helped me couldn't help himself,
yeah,
kind of how it goes in this, and that's why it's so important like to give it away is because it's you never know who you're helping. Like you and the I can't remember the guy's name you were interviewing with that I just saw.
Oh,
Yeah, Steve Hodgson.
Steve Hodgson. Yep.
It looked like he didn't have very many followers. Maybe 100 people saw that, but I happened to be one across the world that saw
Yep.
it and it reached me, and you guys even talked about it, even if it reaches one person. And so it did. And that's kind of like my motivation. The people that I'm keeping around me right now is the people that see that. And that's like it's becoming a thing where I don't think any government's going to stop this, same drugs and all these things that you're allowed to do with free will.
Yep.
But I think it's going to be a cultural shift and more likely of showing just how good not doing those things can be, how much better life can be, and how to live in a way that's positive and fun. And like in your situation, you're living out your dream, running for a living, right? Like
Yep.
I mean, that's from what I can tell. What does it run the world?
Run the world.
Run
Yeah.
the world, yeah.
I replaced my gambling with running.
Yep. Yeah.
Much better option.
Much better, yeah. And that's one thing too of like you see all these, that's what happened to me. I was an athlete, and once you see this with professional athletes, once that like once you retire or you can't do your sport anymore, that is such an addiction for us that we don't realize it's an addiction because it's a good one and we've gotten praise for it and it's kept us in shape. But that addiction doesn't just stop. It has to go somewhere. And
Yep. Yep.
me, once I lost that, I didn't have it. And the only way I could find it was the ups and downs of drugs and gambling. Now
Yeah.
it's what I realized is it was because I wasn't living my truth of like, I need creativity. I need an outlet. I need something like this. I need interaction with other people that have had similar experiences. And I need purpose. And when I have that purpose, I can obsess over that. And I don't need to obsess over these other things.
Yep.
I can run towards that purpose rather than run away from a life I don't want. Because if you put me in a life I don't want, you're guaranteeing that I'm going to do drugs again. It's just going to happen because it's the only way I can live a life I never wanted, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go back to, because this is one thing that, I don't know, it's maybe sensitive, but I know you lost your first marriage, and I'm assuming it had to do with the gambling. Were you using other substances while you were gambling, or was it just gambling?
No, no, I drank socially, but I wasn't addicted to alcohol or anything. No, it was just gambling. And I would when I was drunk, I was a young guy, so I was drinking a bit. It was worse because
Yeah.
my obviously my confidence changed, but 90% of the time I was sober, um,
Wow.
gambling.
Yeah. See, I was more, if I was sober, I would stop, and I hated that. I needed to be drunk so that I would take risks I wouldn't take.
Yeah, wow. No, I
Yeah.
took them. I'm a bit of a risk taker by nature in terms
Yeah.
of my work and my job, and I go out on a limb. And yeah, sober I was just as bad. Um, yeah, it was horrible.
So what'd you lose?
I've added it up before, and I lost $1.2 million.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that was for a 30 to 40-year-old guy. It was everything I had, and I had a company. Um, I was doing well, so it equated to three houses, all my savings, my life savings, um, my super. So it's the only thing I really got in trouble for is I have a self-managed super fund, and so the government um, fined me, and I got in trouble for that. The rest of it was just all my money. I hate using the word steal, but that's the best way to do it. I stole off my mum and dad. You know, they gave me money for stuff that was not the gambling, and I used that for gambling.
Yeah, I did that many times. You're
And
supposed to do something else.
that's still the one. That's still the one that hurts me the most is the fact that I abused their trust. I remember so I came clean about 8 months before I became fully clean, and I told my parents and my wife at the time that I had a problem, and we didn't do anything about it. That's a short story. But my mum and dad gave me $10,000 just to help me get back on my feet, and I gambled that.
Sure.
And they did the nicest thing they could, and I just abused it, and it still haunts me that I did that because I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Well, I was back then, but now I think, oh, who was I? But yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
turn
So I
into
got
a
a
zombie.
lot of money.
You turn into a different, you're not you. You make irrational things. Your motivation, it's a disease of our motivation, and it gears our motivation towards the gambling, and everything else becomes secondary to that.
Yeah,
Rather, your family and your relationships and things like that.
yeah.
So what prompted you to come clean? Was it a big loss?
No, I simply had no money left. I'd spent everything. So my story, I was actually at a marathon event here on the Gold Coast where I live, and it was early in the morning, and I went to put a bet on my sports bet account, and there was just a red number saying no more funds left. and I had no money in the bank. All our mortgages were maxed out. The super had gone. I just simply had no other option. And I looked, and I was at this event, and it popped into my head that I was going to rob the till,
Yeah.
and that was my moment. That was my moment that said, "You are not that person, Trav. You are not that person." And that was that blinding moment where I considered becoming a criminal to fund my gambling.
Yeah. And I've
And
had
that
those
was it.
too.
That, that
Yeah.
was the moment. That was the moment. And I went home that night and told my wife at the time for the second time. She'd already been told this, and she thought I was clean. She thought I'd been doing well for 8 months, but I'd hidden it again. And I told her, and that was the last. I went to Gamblers Anonymous the next day. Um, Took me a little while to go to rehab, but I was in rehab a bit later on. Um, and that was the last bet, July the 7th, 2013.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
There's,
was, you have to have that moment where you tell yourself. So I had my mum and dad telling me, my ex-wife at the time telling me to stop gambling, but that was just external noise. I talk to anyone that has an addiction. You know the moment. Only you know when it's time to pull your head in. And for me, that was such a massive. I remember it like it was yesterday. The feeling I had of telling myself that you're not that person, Trav.
yeah. And I've had those thoughts come into my head when I was completely broke, and it scared me too, because I'm not that person. And I'm so glad I never did anything to put me in the criminal system or did anything criminal.
Yeah,
But I did a lot of, like you said, like, you know, asking for money to help out for rent because my car broke down when it didn't, and things like that.
yeah,
And borrowing money and payday loans and spending my dad died and he left us a little bit of money that was all gone, you know.
yeah,
And yeah, it's for me the biggest thing too is just like, like I had a girlfriend 10 years ago that I was completely in love with, and me doing all the things I was doing, it changes the way you think, like it just really does. And it puts everything else in front of the things that you care about. And they always say in like AA, if you put drugs and alcohol before the things you care, or if you don't put your sobriety in front of the things you care about, you're going to lose anything you don't put your sobriety in front of.
yep,
And that's exactly what happened. I think I ended the relationship at first and then I spent the next 10 years like killing myself over it. And it's like, it's just crazy how it really does change your priorities, change who you are, and you lose much more than money. You lose relationships, you lose potential, you lose possible careers, possible dream jobs. And for me, I ended up working this crappy job forever rather than
yep,
chasing after these things I've wanted to do for the last 15 years and just never did them.
yep,
You kind of just put everything on the back burner. And yeah, it sounds like you lost with your first marriage and, had
yep.
some hard lessons there about relationships but at the
Yeah.
same
So
time,
the,
it's a growing opportunity, right?
the money is nothing. Yeah, the
Yeah.
money is money. That's gone. That doesn't matter. But I lost my kids for 50% of their life.
Mm.
You know, I lost my marriage, so therefore I didn't see my kids for every day. I didn't wake up. There was a week at a time. So I had a 50-50 relation agreement with my ex-wife to have the kids. So there was a week go past where I just didn't see my kids, and they were, my youngest was 8 or 9, so I missed half his life.
Yeah.
And then if someone had told me that, if someone, I don't know, I don't know what there is, but if there's something out there that can grab us when we're in the thick of it, Mike, and we're in the depths of our addiction, if someone came and said to me, I'm going to take your kid away 50% of the time if you keep doing this, maybe that would trigger something. But that never even thought to me that that was a possibility, and take away the woman I loved at the time. If you keep doing this, someone's going to take her away for the rest of your life. But that never enters your mind. And I don't know if there is something that can because I have no doubt if someone had told me that, or they had have even done a trial, and this is a stupid thing to say, but someone just said, "Oh, here I'm just going to take your kids away for a week,
Yeah.
see if you like it."
Yeah.
No, I don't like it. Well, that's what's going to happen if you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So the money was nothing, and yeah, I'm a different person now. Money doesn't mean as much to me. I don't have Excel spreadsheets. I don't have anything. But the one thing I have learned is I'm not giving up on my kids. They're number one now, and they're a bit older. They're almost all adults, but they're still my number one because that's the thing I still kick myself about, Mike, is what I did to them. They lived out of a suitcase between their mums and mine, and I did that. I caused that. So they're my number one now, mate. And money's, if you had a list, it's down to number 117. I think it's behind the beach. It's behind my running. It's behind the air conditioner at the moment. It's behind a good dinner.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean,
So
but I just
have your kids seen the change in you and have they acknowledged that and have you kind of felt that?
100%. Yeah, they haven't acknowledged it verbally. They
Mhm.
haven't said it, but 100% I know that they know I'm a better person. Um, my son went through an addiction at the age of 15.
Mhm.
Um, it was to weed or to marijuana at the age of 15 for 2 years. His mum kicked him out and he lived with me for 2 years. And I had the skills and the ability to get him through it,
Yeah.
which I'm really proud of. And he's now 18. He's got a job. He's finished a traineeship. He's off the weed. He's a good kid. I actually lost a relationship over it because I put him that much first and worked on him that
Mhm.
um, the partner I was at the time, she wasn't happy being number two, but I would not change that for the world. I
Yeah.
got him through. He's now an awesome kid, but you start to think when he was going through it, I thought, shit, did I cause this? Is this a part of what I created? Um,
Mhm.
but me and him now are amazing. He's been through it and his wasn't the longevity of mine or the extent, he was a kid, but our bond is a lot greater. It's just most of the time it's just me and him at home. And my daughter is, I know she knows. She's 20. She's my princess. She knows that I'm a better person, and I can tell in her eyes and when she speaks to me that she's proud of me. Uh, Proud of me for still being here. You know, she's at that age now where she's watching young guys take their own life. And I know she knows that I could have done that at any stage. And so she's proud of me for sticking in there. And yeah, it's worth it, mate. It's
Yeah.
is This is what it's about. I'm waking up and I'm seeing them and I'm smiling and they're smiling back at me.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, one thing I always say is it turns us into children and we need a parent to step in, you know. And that's what I say when people want their loved one to get help. It's like it's such a hard thing because it's not that I didn't want to stop, I couldn't stop, you know.
Yeah,
Those are different things.
yeah, they
I've been
are.
stop for years and it's that I can't. And so you almost need somebody to step in and like hold you, lock you in a room until you form from a zombie back into a human,
Yeah,
and you go through that withdrawal. But yeah, and the other thing is like with I have five nephews and I have a lot of I don't have any kids of my own. And the reason I don't have kids and I don't have a wife is because of my addictions. I never even got that far. Um, but the most important thing to me right now is my nephews. And
yeah,
it's very similar. They feel we're very close, especially the ones that live in California. And I've missed a lot of their life. And it's for the same thing, for the not only the addiction when I'm just gone, but like when I was there, I'm either recovering, I'm irritable, maybe I just lost, or maybe I just am, a few days without substances and I can't be present. And it wasn't until I take Zoloft, I got on medication, and it just helped me so much with being able to be present and be around them and not get annoyed and not be bothered. And
yeah,
something switched in me, and I don't know if it's just age or medication or just experience, but now when I go there, I can hang out with them the whole time. I can say yes to everything they want to do, and I don't need as much me time.
yeah,
And to me, that was like from my family and my dad, he wasn't an alcoholic, but his dad was, and he had very much the emotions of an alcoholic. And so he was always just up and down and angry, and like you just were afraid to be around him a lot of times. And so you didn't want to ask him anything or get, you know. So to have that kind of be solved in me that I felt coming up in me and scared me about myself was having that like
Yeah.
inability to be around kids without, you know, taking them on this roller coaster. Um,
That's a that's a really good point. And my kids know who they're going to get every day now.
yeah,
Back when they were younger, when I was addicted, they didn't know they were either going to get the most fun dad in the world who just won 50 grand.
yeah,
So let's go out to Dream World. Let's go and let's party, kids. Let's go out and get ice cream. To a guy that would basically tell him to get out of my face. I haven't got time for you right now because I've just lost 15 grand on a sports bet or whatever.
yeah,
And I know my kids struggle with that because, oh, I know my ex-wife did, obviously, because I was a different person every day.
yeah,
But I was up and down. My kids know who they're getting now. And that's to anyone out there that's going through it, just the peace and the calm that you have now as a non-addict. I don't have those peaks and troughs. It's just so calming to be free of an addiction
yeah.
that I can't explain. And nothing else matters. Like for me, money doesn't matter anymore. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. You obviously know, and other recoverers know, but to try and explain it to someone how calm you feel,
Yeah.
it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I always talk about too, like when you meet other addicts that have been through it, it's almost like we've been in a war. You know, it's almost like we're old war buddies because we do understand each other. I've known you for 20 minutes and I already feel like I get this person gets me, and I can talk about you pretty much,
100%.
you know, and it's there's just something about that, the blessings that come out of these things, you know, like helping your son through that addiction. Maybe you wouldn't have had those skills and ability to do that if you didn't go through it, you know. And it's just you never know if something that happens is actually good for your life or bad for your life until later down the road. You know, it's hard to tell in the time being because it feels one way, but it often leads to um, things that it gives you down the way, you know, skills. And I feel the same way. If my nephews ever get addicted, I feel like just send them to me and
Yep.
I'm pretty confident I can get them out of it and get them on a better path. Whereas like if I never went through that, I would be like, I don't know what to do. My parents didn't know what to do, you know? Um, so I
Yep.
feel so grateful for that of just, you know, like having
In
this superpower.
in the podcast I did recently, he asked me, "What would you say to the old me?"
Mm,
And it was quite. I thought about it for a while, and basically I said, "Thank you." So that guy, and I am a different person now, so I refer to the old me as a different person, and I thank him for putting me through that, but not giving in. Like, because I had the option, and I was on the phone to I don't know if you have Lifeline over there. Over here we have Lifeline, and I was on the phone to Lifeline. It popped into my head, you know, as an option to take my own life.
mm.
So we've got a over here. It's called Lifeline, and you ring
Oh, it's
up,
like a
and
helpline.
there's a counsellor there straight away.
Yeah, we do have something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was on the phone to them, sitting on the floor of my apartment, and I just thanked that person for not giving in. Because the lessons that that guy, the old me, taught me have made me who I am now. So as much of an ass he was, and a liar and a cheat, and just a really pretty poor person externally, I got a lot. I owe him a lot.
Yeah.
He's taught me a lot, and
Yeah, you're so it's so interesting because you look like an ex-brother-in-law of mine who had an addiction, and he had three kids from my sister and him had just had a 1 year old, and he had two kids from a previous marriage, and he had a lot of back pain and got addicted to pain pills. And she came home to visit us one Christmas, and she got a call that he killed himself and he had hung himself in their living room. And you look like him. And
uh,
so it's really cool for me to hear this side of that story because I've seen the other side
yeah,
and the ripples it causes to those kids how it's affected their lives, how it's affected my nephew's life, how it's affected my sister. She's remarried and to a great guy. But I mean, it's not the same, and it caused a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And it was just that he didn't see any other way out, and he didn't have that support and he didn't know how to reach out, And so I'm so happy that you did, because your kids' life, everybody that knows you, their life is better for it that you didn't make that decision, And
100%. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I remember being in that state, and I was positive that's how my life had to end. I knew it, and I knew everything had led up to that, and that's how it had to end. And that always amazed me, because I was so luckily I got institutionalized into a mental health facility, thanks to my family and my sister especially. But once I was out of that, and now I feel the exact opposite. I'm so happy I lived, and so happy I have life. And I will never, because I realized then, like now I realize emotions are temporary. They're not reality. Not real. And I was so positive, and now I'm so positive that things will always get better. So there's no way I would ever do anything like that, because I always know, I remember when it felt so real. And so even if it feels real, it's not. It's an illusion, and it's just something that you're just in a down, I've never had it that bad before again, but it always gets better. It always gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Can
you
I
always,
ask you a question?
yeah,
Can So it sounds to me, just based on that, that your parents and your sister saved your life.
I would say so. Yeah.
Did they physically pull you out of your house and take you, or did they have some
It was pretty
encouraging words?
undeniable. It was pretty undeniable at that point. I had been up for multiple days. I was on drugs. I would dropped out of class. I dropped out of school. I was seeing a therapist, and he had me send them messages. I kind of had to force them into
Yeah.
that. That's kind of always been a problem, is like I have to get really, really bad where it's like undeniable, before anybody steps in, which is, I'm not blaming anybody, but yeah, it was pretty undeniable at that point. I was talking crazy, I was saying crazy things, I was, you know, yeah. And it had
Well,
happened.
they,
And then after that one, it happened a few times. But then we come up with like a code word. For us, it was Spider-Man. And if I felt like I was just too far gone, I'd say Spider-Man. And my sister would take me to the hospital. So I did a couple of 5150s and staying in like a mental institution for a few times, went to a few rehabs. It took a very long time for me to get out of it and realize, um, just to navigate that whole thing, because my family wasn't really, you know, I don't know. They just didn't have the tools, you know.
yeah,
It wasn't their fault. It's just they didn't have the tools. We were living in a small town. We didn't have much exposure to any of this. They didn't. Um, but I think everything, and for me, it really helped me learn to rely on community. It really
yeah,
helped me to learn to rely on, like programs like AA, to reach out to other addicts, because that has become my support system. Those are the ones I can count on.
yeah,
And as much as my family did, there's limits to what they are willing to do, or willing to go along in this journey. And so now that I've learned those, I don't expect that from them, which
yeah,
has
yeah,
helped me tremendously. It's when your expectations are that they should do something and they don't, eventually you just have to change your expectations, and now you don't have to have resentment.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I know who I go to for certain things. I have my people, and that
yeah,
allows me to have a better relationship with my family.
yeah. That I'm exactly the same. If I have a moment or I need to talk to someone, I'll go to my external network community. And those people are so random. They're people I hardly know,
Yeah.
but I would choose them over my mum and dad or my sister because those people get me. Or they get the what I'm going through. And no disrespect to my parents either. They're there if I need them for other things, but for this addiction and for what they know, they don't have the tools to help me out. So I think a lot of people make that mistake of thinking that their family might be the ones to help them, but you and I are lucky, so we can help because we've been there. But my parents didn't know about addiction.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. 2 secs. Still there?
Yeah.
Wait, phone call coming in.
Oh, gotcha.
Um, yeah, so they didn't have the tools to help me, and no disrespect to them because they'd never been through what I've been through. So to have that external community now, and like I said before, they're random people. They're one of my people I go to is a 80-year-old lady that is 40 years alcoholic free. So we didn't even have the same addiction.
Yeah.
Um, but she's in the similar running circles to me, so we knew each other. I didn't know she was um, an ex-addict until I came out, and then she would just come and have a polite, really kind, gentle 80-year-old lady's word to me, and it was something that my parents and my sister and even some of my friends couldn't give me, and this lady that I hardly knew could offer me. It was amazing to have that network.
Yeah. Some of my best friends I've never met in person. I've known him for
Yeah,
years
right.
because I met him in an online AA meeting. They live far away. And so, like, one of them I knew him for, I don't know, 8 years, and we just met for the first time a few weeks ago. And,
Wow.
yeah, and it's just crazy because I feel like I know these people so much, and then it's like, oh yeah, we've actually never met. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And so, yeah, I get that. I completely get that. And I think when I first came into AA, I remember I felt home. I felt like I was home finally. I felt like I finally found people that understood because before
Yep.
that, I didn't know what was wrong. I thought I was crazy. I thought, and I didn't realize it was all addiction. It was just, you know,
Yep.
um, and so like that relief of like finding that group. So anybody listening to this that feels alone, it's like you're not, you really aren't. And there's people out there that totally relate and probably lived almost the same life you did,
Yep.
and it's kind of crazy.
I remember those drives to Gamblers Anonymous and thinking I was going to a friend's dinner party. That's everyone there. I could talk to any of them. I knew them all. I was comfortable in
Yeah.
my element. It was a really driving there was a really positive experience, and being there, obviously. I was never intimidated. Never thought, oh, geez, I've got to go and hang out with these people. It was just, I'm going to spend some time with my family.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it turns into.
Mm,
Man, great story. We should probably wrap up here in a minute because I got to get ready for work, but
yep. No worries.
I really appreciate you talking to me, and it's been, I try to do something every day to keep me on track, and this is a great one. This was, yeah,
Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully we can talk again in the future. Yeah.
Most definitely. Next thing, do you run, Mike? Do you get out next, or do you go to the gym, or do you ride a bike?
I'm getting back into it. I love working out. I love going to the gym. I like
Good.
running, but I get a lot of plantar fasciitis, so it's hard for me to go distances.
Yeah.
But I've that's kind of one thing on my list, and even watching your stuff is, man, I got to get back into running because I love it, and I got to get that looked at and fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
tell me about the your program a little more.
yeah, so it started. So the long story is I needed to replace it, my addiction with something, and I said to myself, I want to run around Australia. That was my crazy idea of overcoming this addiction. Logistically, I couldn't do it. I had three kids. I had no money, obviously. So I set up a virtual run around Australia, and that was back in 2014.
Wow.
And it was a hobby. It was just something I did it for me. I just said, so every time I ran, I uploaded it to a very basic website, and it just tracked me on a run around Australia. It was 14,080 kilometers. So it was
That had to be like early on. Like,
yeah,
yeah, there wasn't a lot of people doing that, right?
nothing virtual about that back then. And it was a hobby. And just, I got lucky. 750 people, most of them I didn't know, jumped on board. Bit Forrest Gump like. They were all with me. And that's how my business Run the World started. It was run down under, so it was just a run around Australia, and then I turned it from a hobby. I went through rehab. I sold the company I had. I had a year off just to um, find myself is the best way to describe it. And then when I had to go and get I call it a crappy job to survive, pushing tables and chairs around a convention center from being a CEO of a company to filling up water bottles and pushing chairs around. But I'm I'm proud enough to say that was the best job I could have done. And during that time, I then started thinking about what I wanted to do. And I was lucky enough that I turned this hobby of mine, this virtual run, into a job. So now it's called Run the World. I've got 8 different maps. So people run, they upload it to my app, and then it tracks them on. You can run around USA, you can run around
Oh, wow.
Canada, you can do New Zealand, you can do the UK. There's different maps to choose from, and that's now my baby. That's I run most days. I spend some time. I've got about 8,000 members on there, so I try and make it a community. So we interact, we get out for runs. It's still an app, so a lot of people are just doing their own thing,
Yeah.
and that's
Is there like
now my
community meetups too? Like meetup runs?
yeah, yeah. We've mainly based around people that finish a map. So to finish a map is anywhere between 3 and 15 years, depending on how much you
Oh,
run.
wow.
So to finish a map, particularly now, I'm getting people that have taken 11 years to do it.
Wow.
It's amazing to put your to work at something for 11 years and then have a finish line. I go and put up a finish line, and I encourage everyone to come. So that's what we do that at least every month. There's someone around the place that's finishing that wants the fanfare. So we catch up there. We do various events. It's still an online because I've got members from all over the world. So a lot of it's social media,
Yeah.
but it's a really positive environment, Mike. It's something that's fits me perfectly. I run, I smile, and basically I living the dream now.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I'll put that up on I'll link that in the description, your website and everything.
Yeah, awesome,
I'll check it
awesome.
out too. That actually sounds awesome. I want to see what that's like.
Yeah,
That's a cool way to go about it because there's so many running apps, but like to have a long-term map that you're working on over year to get to that special accomplishment and club and I don't know, everything about that's really cool. That's a really cool approach. I like that a lot. Yeah.
and it comes from my philosophy. I'm still fighting the battle for overcoming my addiction. It's not a six
Yeah.
week program. It's not an 8 week program. It's a lifetime program. So my business model around my running app is I want you to be committed to running for life. And it's not just running; it's walking as well. It is called Run the World, but I have a lot of people that walk
Yeah.
on there. As long as it's structured, that's the main rule. But I've got 127,500 kilometers worth of distance on there. So that's a lifetime worth of running. And that's my business model. I want you to run, I want you to start a map, and I want you to run, walk for life. And it doesn't have to be ridiculous kilometers, it's just making the effort to get out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then this message that I'm sending is not just running. The gym, like you said, go for a surf,
Yeah.
find Pilates, do yoga, go for a bike ride,
Yeah.
bushwalk. There's so many endorphins that are released through exercise that can replace an addiction and make your day really meaningful. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's funny because that's exactly what happens when I'm using and drinking. I slowly stop doing all that stuff. And when I stop doing that stuff, I slowly get back into yoga, running, weightlifting, pick up soccer, all sorts, skateboarding. I get
yep, yep,
all the things that it's like your passions come back and
yeah,
your, motivations for what we were meant for as far as like producing those endorphins come back. Yeah, and those things become much more enjoyable. And yeah, like you
yep,
said, it becomes a lifestyle rather than just like a program. It's a way to live.
yep.
And the more you do it, the you stay young. How old are you now?
I'm 52.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
52, yeah,
39. So
yeah,
yeah, it's as you get older, you see the people that exercise and the ones that don't, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger.
yep.
So
And what becomes bigger and bigger is the enjoyment, the smile on people's
yeah,
faces. And I've got people I know that don't exercise and stuck in jobs and things, and they don't smile as much as they should.
yeah, yeah.
And I better let you get to work.
All right. Well, thanks, Travis. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll link your stuff and you're the man.
Thanks for reaching out, mate. Yeah, we'll keep in touch after this as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe you can come back on sometime or yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Later.
See you, mate.